after about the first month and a half of a grind, okay, you're going to grind your kids to get them into wrestling shape, to get them to where they can go the whole 6 minutes without needing an oxygen mask. Kind of lighten up a little bit, not lighten up in your practice, but make them want to be there. That was one of the hardest things to learn as a coach, was to be able to do that.
It's just finding those victories, man, and it's keeping it light, like they said, it's keeping it fun for them, um, and just learning your kids. I mean, I have kids that, they need that rah-rah before a match in their face, and I have kids that need me to be their buddy, and I have kids that technically just wanna hear what was wrong. I would say most wrestlers are not that kind of football vibe of like, "Oh, you gotta be better," whatever, they kinda want you to build them up a little bit and just explain.
Learning how to deal with that and the small victories and how to help coach that, it really helps soften my approach for the way that I deal with the boys.
Yeah.
And it's made it to where I'm so much more understanding with my freshmen that have never wrestled before, of being able to help them understand the truth that Rome wasn't built in a day, that it takes time, and that 20 seconds that becomes 40 seconds, that becomes the second period.
Welcome back to the North Florida Wrestling Show. I'm your host, Jordan Cohn. Today's sponsor is Deaton Custom Construction. Zach Deaton of Deaton Custom Construction has been an avid supporter of North Florida wrestling and wrestling as a whole for many, many years, and he brings that same level of commitment to his construction business. His ability to form relationships and deliver quality results is second to none. If you need any construction needs, hit up Deaton Custom Constructions. Now on to today's episode. I had an individual reach out to me by the name of Joshua Richardson, who's going to be heading up the Rutherford High program in Panama City, Florida. He asked me if I could give him any advice on what it takes to be a head coach and how to construct a team as well as run a practice. Now, I only had 2 years, and I had an amazing staff around me to help shore up any of my deficiencies. So I wanted to be able to get him the answers that he needed. So I reached out to a couple of our coaches in the area, one Jeremiah LaFontaine of Mosley, Zane Turnipseed of North Bayhaven, and Tracy Malcolm of Weewall to help answer any questions that he had. I know I learned a lot from listening to these 3 highly tenured coaches, and I think you're going to learn a lot too, whether you're a new coach or you have been in it for a long time. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get to the show.
Josh, how you doing, buddy?
Doing all right.
Good, man. Congratulations on taking the head coaching position at Rutherford.
I appreciate.
Yeah, congrats.
So tell us a little bit what led you to taking the position? How did that come about?
So I really just kind of fell into it. Honestly, coaching is something that I've always kind of been interested in getting into. Just have never had the opportunity to. And I took this job here at the school district and just told them that I was interested in getting in within a program, regardless of the school. And Rutherford's just happened to pop up, and so I took it and ran with it.
Okay, so that's interesting. So you didn't have anyone in particular, you just wanted to get started.
Yeah, I just wanted to get my foot in the door somewhere and just get it underneath my belt.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
I'll get you on another episode so we can explore your background and everything. But I know you reached out to ask me if I could help out with any questions of the head coach. I'm not gonna lie to you, I lucked up in having a fantastic group around me that covered a lot of my deficiencies. But we got we got 3 guys that have been in it for a long time that decided to volunteer their time today to answer any of the questions that you have to kind of get you up to speed, because I think that's a huge thing that we have in North Florida going now is a very big collaborative effort and a willingness to see each other succeed. So we got Zane, Jeremiah, and your old coach, Tracy, here to help you. Whenever you want, go ahead and start your questions.
Well, like I said, some of these have been answered in private discussion, but my first one I got is really, how is scheduling done? How do I go about scheduling tournaments and duels?
Like the scheduling it for yourself or putting your team on the schedule to go to tournaments and duels?
Yeah, getting the kids signed up and getting them to the tournaments.
So one of the big ones that I like to look at personally is I go into Cabra and try to look at the scheduling of what's in Cabra, plus looking at what my schedule was from the previous year. So obviously, if it was a good tournament that I've been to in the past, those are ones I want to go back to. And then there's some that obviously may not have been a good tournament, or the fee was high going to the tournament, or the distance was far and the cost for the tournament was more than what our fundraising may have been to help cover going to the tournament like that. Like going down south is expensive. So if the fundraiser isn't there for the hotels and the drive to be worth trying to go, I don't want to wipe out extra tournaments by trying to go to one big major, one down south. So the locals are one of the big ones. Like for me, definitely at Mosley, looking at going to Gator Brawl. That's a automatic that I'm going to look at. Going to the Mulligan is an automatic that I'm going to look at. I host a tournament in January. So those are three of them right out of the gate that are ones that I look at. For Rutherford, that's typically one, like I look at you guys coming to my tournament is a pretty normal standard, because that's how it's been for the last, since I've been running the Panhandle for probably the last 4 or 5 years. Rutherford's normally a pretty standard team to come to it for the boys, and now that we have girls coming to it. But then really Cobra. I mean, Cobra is honestly one of the bigger focal points that I use to try to look for tournaments. And then I go to one in Alabama just because we'd been to it once before and I love it, going up to Hoover for the Scott Roar, because they've got boys and girls.
Okay. Yeah. And how does that work? Scheduling out of state tournaments. Is there any like extra paperwork or anything that is involved in that?
If you go to a state that we don't share a border with, there is. But if you're just going to Alabama or Georgia, there's not. It's not very different. Other than just communicate with your athletic director, because like we were talking about before we started, it has changed depending on the school. I know Arnold wanted a little bit more discussion when I was there about us going out of state, even if it was Alabama, where the other two schools I've been at, they really didn't mind. Again, as long as you're sharing that border.
Yeah.
So
and then for Gulf County, we have to get permission from our supervision from our district in order to go even to Georgia and Alabama. We have to get permission to do that. So
yeah, because yours comes from the school board, right, Trace?
It does, yeah, school board and the people, and now we have a county athletic director. It comes from him as well. He has to give his permission.
Right.
Yeah, so I know, so for me at Mosley, I turn my schedule in per the mandates. It goes to our athletic bookkeeper. She gets it registered with the state, so it's met the FHSA requirement that it gets loaded into the home campus portion where you would see your athletic clearance, where you're going to go in and check to make sure that your kids have done their physicals, their athletic clearance, to make sure they're eligible to even get on the mat. That's where you manage your official roster and your official team schedule that the state will see. As long as your events are registered there, you're official, you're covered. But if you do drop a tournament and you're going to pick up a new tournament somewhere, at least I know for us, the athletic bookkeeper is critical to make sure that we let them know so they can get it updated on the page.
Hey, I want to backtrack for a second, Josh. On just looking for tournaments. First thing you need to look at for yourself and for us as new coaches when we did it was, what was our budget? That drove everything. So we didn't, for the first few years, I didn't travel any further than Tallahassee. Pensacola was the big trip for us. And then we wrestled everything we could in Bay County until we got our finances in a place to where we could go to Alabama, we could go to Georgia and get those things done. So that, like I spoke earlier to you when you and I were talking, find out your finances, ensure you know what they are first, because this is one of the most expensive sports to put on from a coaching standpoint. Because everything you do, even possibly a duel, is going to cost you a little bit of money, even if you don't host it. Usually duels are free, but second thing is, we were talking about getting the out-of-state tournaments. Know that Alabama and Georgia are considered the same. So it doesn't, you're allowed one out-of-state or one out-of-conference everything tournament a year, and that's it. So if you go to South Carolina, North Carolina, Louisiana, Mississippi, you can only do that once a year. So keep that in mind as well. The Alabama, Georgia doesn't count towards that, but the others do. That's bitten a few teams in the hiney in years past.
Yep.
Yeah, so to backtrack it even further than that with Tracy, and I know like you guys probably already talked about it, but Josh, like I always go and I print out a calendar. I'll go to literally printacalendar.com or whatever it's called. And the first thing I would do, I would go through your Bay District school's calendar or whatever your school's calendar is and figure out when do you have testing days? Because ideally you don't want to even bother trying to travel on that day if you can help it. When do you have your holidays, all these sort of things, and start with that because those are the things you can't change. And then from there, I would go to the FHSA site or just talk with us and look at when is your district duels going to be. We don't have a voted on date, but in District 1, at least, we pretty much know it's almost guaranteed that, first Thursday or second Thursday in January. So I would hammer down, but like the district IBT date, we almost always do that Thursday before regionals because we've had girls regionals that same week. But even though that's one day, like the travel makes that to where you don't want to schedule. So like I would really get the postseason stuff that's not going to change down. And then even district duels is going to change what you want to do because for us, we know we're probably going to go to Freeport again, just guessing. And so I don't really want to go to Freeport Thursday night and then go all the way to Jacksonville Friday, Saturday. So even though there's a local event that maybe isn't my preference, I would rather just go and wrestle Freeport's duels the following Friday, Saturday than try to wrestle late Thursday, drive late Thursday, stay Friday, Saturday, whatever. And now your kids are tired, they're worn out, plus the money that you're spending and all that. And like Tracy said, the first year that I was at Arnold and the first year I was at North Bay, we really, if you could hit the dog pound duels, if you could get into Border Wars, that's up to Travis. But if you can get into Border Wars, you can get into Panhandle, you can get into Mulligan, and you can get into Gator Brawl, you're looking at 5 of your 9 events you probably don't need a hotel for. And that's going to save you $5,000 roughly off the
Easy.
bat.
Easy.
Yeah. And that's only if you have boys. I'm not even like if you just have rooms for boys. So I mean, you're talking 5,000 in the hotels, whatever, in Van's guest, whatever. And so, that's how I would start. Like, get your postseason down. You have to go to George Mulligan. That's our county event. Trust me, there's been years I've tried to not go to the county event, they will make you go.
And it's a
But
good
you have to go to
tournament too.
that. It is. No,
Yeah,
it
good
absolutely is. I'm talking about when we used to not have it coupled with a
Yeah.
tournament and it used to be its own freestanding thing. So no heart. I love the Mulligan. It's great. It is unfortunately the same time as the state duels, but anyway, so yeah, I would hit those events, and from there, like Coach said, usually you can either hit Pensacola or Tallahassee if there's nothing kind of within that close range. And even South Alabama, you might be able to find like a good opportunity just as a sales pitch because it can be cool for the kids to hear they get to go out of state. Some of them haven't gone past X amount of miles from their own home before, so.
So to reiterate a little bit more on that scheduling, is there like a max amount of tournaments and duels that I'm allotted per season, or is
So
that
you-
just based on
So
point?
you get a total of 20 points, weigh-in points, competition points, the way that you look at it. 18 of those are essentially dedicated tournament points. They can be used for duels. So I guess really to state that you have 2 points that are dedicated duel points. They can only be used for duels. The other 19
Individual
or the other
duels.
18 points, individual duels.
Individual
duels. So those 2 points can only be used individuals. So that's a duel, 1 point, a duel, 1 point. So you may want to look at a home and away or just 2 duels, but those 2 points are only for an individual duel. The other 18 points are your discretion of how you want to use those. If you go to 9 tournaments, there's your 18 points. You could do 18 duels, individual duels. There's your 18 points. A try or a bye duel is still 2 points, which is where, so like the Panhandle, it's a dual tournament. You're most likely going to get 7 duels. That makes that 2 points really worth the points because you're going to get a bunch of matches.
It does.
So as a newer coach, one of the things I like to try to chase was dual tournaments because I wanted to try to get my kids as many matches as I could, especially when they're new. Some of the IBT tournaments that are really good tournaments, they're great if your kids are up to the par. If not, you're taking a kid that's going to go 0-2, and you may have one out of your 14 that's good, and everyone else is watching your one good kid on day 2 while the other 13 have already been knocked out on day 1. Uh, so that kind of plays into that scheduling part. But those 18 points, you use them how you want to. Just make sure that how you're balancing that, especially if you run JV, because you can run a JV kid and still bounce them between a JV event and a varsity event. They still just cannot go over the 20 maximum weigh-in points outside of district duels, regions, IBT, anything state series. Those weigh-in points don't count against that 20-point count.
Awesome.
Yep.
Sorry, I'm jotting down notes as we're going too.
You're good.
Yeah, the point
Yeah,
stuff got me really bad the first year.
Yeah, I think because it can sound complicated, I really look at it as 9 events, 2 individual duels. And then like coach said, if you wanted to turn those 9 events and just use one for a one-on-one duel, that's your prerogative. It would be 1 point instead of 2. But yeah, I'd really look for your 9 events and 2 individual duels. And I agree with coach about the duels. There's different philosophies on this because if I'm a smaller team, let's say you have 6 starters this year, whatever numbers you end up having, right? You go to a dual event, your odds of getting any wins are really low because you have to hope either they have gaps and then you win every match, or I know Tracy's had those years, especially when he first was rebooting, where they had 4 kids. But while the team might not win, if I don't have a lot of assistant coaches, I watch all my kids wrestle back to back. I'm not running to this mat. I'm not running to that mat. I don't have 2 or 3 kids up at once. And again, if it's a tournament where they can't be eliminated day 1 and you get to move on to day 2 and still see that extra mat time, I just really enjoy it personally. I like it as a coach. I think it builds the team really well compared to IBTs because they are watching each other, they are supporting each other. And even I think it's easier to figure out what your kids are doing wrong because when you watch 10 of them go up there in a row and every single one of them got low single to their butt off the whistle, like we're not moving off the whistle. We're not down blocking right. We're not, I think it's easier to kind of see those repeated issues where sometimes I'm coaching a kid in my head. I'm like, man, we got to work on this. But then this kid's screaming at me that he's up across the gym and I've dumped that to go to the next one. So I'm a real big proponent, especially when you're starting out with a program and trying to build it up of hitting those duels, or like Tracy's tournament, like a scramble where you're going to have that kind of pool play day 1 into a bracket day 2.
Let me ask you guys, when did you start moving out? Because I exactly what Tracy was saying, until you can build up the finances, because that is a huge part you don't really think of. Because as much as you plan for, you probably need an extra like 2 or 3 grand. When did you guys start?
3 grand, touch it.
That's like one tournament.
When did you guys start, branching out at like what year? You know, how did you develop your
Well,
schedule as you became?
as the I guess longest tenured in this group, it took us probably out in Weewahishka, took probably 6 years of fundraising and doing to be able to branch out to go to a different state. I did venture to Jacksonville first before I started going north, and that was just like an out of state event. So it does take a while for a smaller program. Now with Josh and Rutherford being Panama City, Bay County, hopefully they got a little bit easier time of it on the fundraising aspect, and you can get a few things to do that and then not take a couple years. But for me, I want to say it was 5 or 6 good years before I ventured out of state.
Yeah, I would say for me, I've been pretty fortunate. I mean, this will be my 4th year as a head for Mosley. Since I've been there, the first 3 years we didn't really do any out of states. When I was under Winkler, when we got Skipper, hell, I think even with Skipper, we only did 1 going up to Alabama the one time. But that was the precedence that's when we started it. And I think that was really the push, me trying to we wanted to go do these things. But we're being at Mosley, we're a little more fortunate. We started from that first year being there, ending with 8 kids. So like this year, ending with 43 kids. Having 43 kids on the team, even for the ones that aren't able to help fundraise the most, we do have a pretty good offset of the ones that do hit their fundraising goals. So we're blessed a little bit, I guess.
wanted to say too, like, I think, I've fortunately gotten to be at a lot of places at the rebuilding stage, or just kind of a fresh-ish stage. And so I think money wise, my first year at North Bay, we really could have probably traveled more, but I didn't have but maybe one kid that I felt, you know, could even qualify at that point. And so I think sometimes it's skill level based too. If you're wrestling everybody within Bay County and even that Tallahassee, Pensacola range, and almost every kid in your team has a losing record, I don't always know that even if I had the money, that I would jump all the way to Jacksonville. Because I think sometimes too, when you have a kid that's starting out, because it's one of the hardest sports in the world, and I know this is a question later, but it's one of the hardest sports in the world to start and find that like winning. Because it's just, I always say like baseball, see ball, hit ball. Pretty straightforward. I know there's a lot to baseball. I'm not dissing it, but I think you can have a lot more quick success if you're somewhat coordinated, somewhat athletic. Same thing with football. I can simplify it to that guy has ball, go get guy. And wrestling is just, you can get baited in so much if you don't know a move. There's not a lot you can do sometimes. And I think when I lose 10 matches in a row, but I stayed in my own bed versus went down to Orlando and got 0 and 10, it's, I feel like that's a harder mental thing. So I think it's a combination of money. I think it's also a combination of when you're ready to push your kids to a certain level. Cause that's a whole other conversation of do you want to load the beginning of your season tough and then down, or some teams want to work up into postseason. Then I've heard the argument that you're banged up if you're doing too much hard stuff right there at the end. That's a whole other, I'd be curious what you guys think, but as
Well,
far as where you want to load.
I'll say it is very fortunate nowadays that with tournaments like the George Mulligan, with Jeremiah bringing in such tournaments for the Panhandle, that we're getting a lot of that outside looks without having to travel further. So that is one thing, Josh, that you will get to benefit from seeing teams from like Oklahoma, Louisiana. Especially like you said, if you get into border wars, you'll see Louisiana's competition. So I think the North is getting a lot better and bringing the competition to us, so newer programs don't have to travel out and
Sure.
taking advantage of the dual tournaments. One question I do have, and this was something I dealt with at the end of last year. How many points did you guys have left for the girls' side of it? Because I feel like we could have scheduled way more duels. Because I feel like I had like 5 points that I did not use for the girls.
Yeah, I want to say my team, I had 6 left over, and that was because tournaments got canceled at the last
Mm,
minute kind of deal. A little
yep.
bit sketchier, and maybe not the right word, sketchy, but it's a little bit harder to schedule the ladies' stuff
It
into
does.
good quality tournaments.
So this was the first year I did not have any points left over for the girls.
Okay.
Nice.
Typically, I've ended up leaving at least 1 point, if not 2, on the board for the
Yeah.
last years for the girls. Last year, managed not to leave any.
Good.
Yeah. That's definitely getting harder because as the girls grow, which is beautiful, the odds of the school being able to host, we've talked about this. I know Jeremiah and I have, and I know Tracy, you would love to have a girls portion at Gator Brawl if
Yep.
Matt's space timing even remotely could work. And so that's becoming harder. And that's definitely going to make those points, especially for us schools that don't have, you know, I know Jay's been blessed and North Bay's been blessed to have that kind of dedicated girls coach. But that first year or two that I really built up the girls and I was running a junior high girls, boys, if I couldn't find something the boys and girls could be at, that was really tough to do.
Yep.
And
That definitely makes
even,
it hard. Not
yeah,
if you don't have a dedicated coach to be able to take the girls, you're literally stuck to tournaments that have both. You can only go to a tournament that has both. And especially being in Bay, if your girls coach, whether they're a volunteer coach or not, they will have to have their head coaching certificate just like you do from the state. Or
yeah,
Bay districts will not allow them to take those girls without you being there. So
Yep.
yeah,
it really can make it difficult.
for sure. So that's a piece of it. I think some more of those are coming up, but like Tracy said, it's establishing a tournament. And it's, to be honest, it's part of why we really haven't hosted like a boys event because, you know, Gator Brawl's established, Panhandle's established, Border Wars and Cam Brown happen at the same time. And so that kind of pulls two ranges. The second and third week of December, I never touch because we're usually finishing up school testing. That third week's also, your knockouts, your beast of the beast. So But the girls haven't found that yet. So Tracy's right. We've had a few where we were like halfway to Jacksonville and, oh, sorry to call you, coach. Like this girls thing's canceled. And there's just not a lot of super close things. I know a few of us keep running girls things and that's great. But yeah, it's hard to schedule at times, and the out of state's hard because of their season being different than ours. This is what I run into too, is I would love to go to Alabama and Georgia more. And even we used to always go to Louisiana once. But what's happened is that December's become pretty ironed out for us on what we need to do. Then we need to come back and get ready for district duels and panhandle. And so it's turned into where, well, they're in their postseason by the time I'm looking at these other 2 months we could possibly compete. So now those states are gone on where we could go. And then we're left with Central Florida,
Well,
to try to get the girls matches.
the other states are a week to two ahead of us.
Yeah.
They start a week to two earlier. So
Yeah, which is one of the things that kills with Border Wars being that first tournament is that you've got Jesuit coming in who's 2 weeks in, and they've got 10 matches under their belt, and they're prime and warm, and we're getting that first one, and it's eye opener.
I would go to South Carolina the first weekend for several years, and we were not, and they were 10, 15, and 1, somewhere around in there already at that point.
On the weigh-in points, are the boys and girls points, they're separate? The girls,
same amount of points.
The same amount?
Same amount of points. But Josh, like I said, you have to have a separate program for the girls for their postseason.
Yeah,
they cannot be part of the boys team and then all of a sudden go, hey, I'm going to wrestle girls postseason. That they won't let them do that. So you have to have that girl team and the weigh-in points for there.
Okay. Now,
and they need to make scratch at their girls' weight, because I know there's times where you'll be able to use them in a boys. So if I don't have all my girls' points, sometimes it makes sense if you're at a dual event and you have a few girls that you can put on your dual roster with the boys. It does make sense. But I've watched teams where this girl wrestled with the boys all year at 106, never made 100 scratch. Well, and then they get to girls' districts and all of a sudden, it's a whole ordeal. But
well, 2 or 3 years ago, it almost cost Crestview 2 of their girls.
That's what I was referring to. I just wasn't going to drop names.
Well, I'm not going to give the names other than it was Crestview. And they hadn't been able to get that weigh-in sheet. 2 of their girls wouldn't have been able to wrestle.
Yeah, it was.
They're very fortunate. They're very fortunate. I'm glad it worked out. But
well, so I've had several wrestlers come up to me at school because I worked there at Rutherford as a custodian there, and they're asking me every day about open mats and conditioning. So what are the guidelines and rules on that for all seasons?
Go ahead, Zane. Not mine.
So this is a very funny thing because I've read it a number of times. The difference between conditioning and practice is very important. So anytime you're using that language, it's very, very important that conditioning has nothing to do with like wrestling related technique or instruction. Conditioning is running, lifting, whatever. So there's a different set of dates. I don't know them by heart right now that you're allowed to do that. That could just be lifting and running. And then practice, the God's honest truth is you get an AAU wrestling or a USA wrestling club. You use a facility usage form or whatever your school does in order to use to the school. And then it's up to you what you want to set your hours to be. You just got to make sure, you pay for the club, you pay for your coach's membership, and every kid out the practice has to have the card. Because if they don't, now you're just doing illegal off-season practices.
Yeah.
That's the short version. Some people on some side of the bridge would try to make up some other version of that, but that's the truth so far as most of the state operates.
Now on that part, the only one I'll add is we were told specifically via the district AD that during season, we are not allowed to be involved with club, even though we have a USA charter club. Now, we know it's done down south. We know it's done to the east. We know it's pretty much done everywhere. But via my AD through the district AD, so your AD as well. So we're not allowed to. So I didn't push the issue or try to fight it, even though I think we're allowed to. Just because I'm trying to get in trouble over it. Have our USA club. If my wrestlers choose to do additional workouts after the high school practices are over, good on them for trying to get better.
For sure.
Not going to fault them on that. And if they're paying for it, who am I to say they can't pay to go get additional practices? Now,
Sorry. I was going to say, it is generally speaking wise if you have an assistant coach. And again, this is why I think it's frustrating. Our district is pushing this when the major programs in the state aren't, is more often than not in our area. And it's growing and it's an improved, but usually it's a single coach. You know what I mean? I know Tracy, when you started, and again, Mosley's been blessed to have some other people involved, but there's been a lot of times where you're the guy and there's not one other person but a dad that's helping you drive vans, and maybe they're learning as they go. But yeah, if you do have that blessing or an option to give someone else that club title, I do think that is a good way to try to separate yourself a bit from it.
and then I know, like for us, September 31st will be our last day for club.
Yeah.
Because I have kids from multiple schools within our club. September 31st, I will separate out high schoolers. They'll be kicked back to their parent schools to be able to start strength and conditioning. And then, like Zane said, I can run the heck out of them. We can do weight training, nothing wrestling orientated at all. No stance motion type instruction to a wrestling specific instruction at all. The girls' first day is November the 3rd. The boys' first day is November the 10th. Then they'll be cleared to do wrestling instruction. But for your strength and conditioning, even, you need to make sure that each athlete is cleared through athletic clearance before you even allow them to pick up a weight.
Yeah, and especially this time of year, you want them through athletic clearance, even if you're running, just because you got to follow you need to communicate with your trainer about the heat and the wet bulb. And thank goodness it's cold when we get into like our real season. But yeah, right now I've watched band kids fall out. I've watched plenty of that. So unfortunate.
And both Zane and Jeremiah hit on everything I was going to hit on. So
Sorry, Tracy.
nope, you're good.
That's an important topic to me because I've read it plenty of times. But
Yes, and actually I just reread it because the new book came out, and I was like, well, let me go through and make sure because it's a new season, just in case they changed anything. Because I hate getting in trouble for stupid things.
Oh, for sure.
Now, when it comes to official practices starting, is there a limit on how long I can have practice? I mean, can I only do it for 2 hours? Can it be 3 hours? I mean,
6 hours.
So if you're hold on,
Go ahead.
I need
6 hours from 3 to 9 o'clock. You run them from 3 to 9 o'clock. Run your practices.
Let me ask Jordan this one. I just want to be controversial for a second. So if I'm in Live Oak, the answer is
Dude,
as long as it takes
practice.
to get a good practice in.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, if it's a Monday practice, you might as well you might want to pack a lunch, dude. We're there for hours.
But I think that's easier when you have a community like that knows wrestling and is bought in that way. I think there's a little more. What I would tell you though, to be honest, like when I saw that question listed, the best practice of all time. Let's say all your kids are hammering it, they're hitting everything with intensity. Like there might not even be a water break. Is 90 minutes. I mean, at the collegiate level, they just come in and run a tight 90. Now, granted, you stretch before coach gets there, and you do unled events through coach and whatever. But realistically, in high school, if you're going over 2 hours, something's gone wrong. I firmly believe that. I mean, we have to set up and break down, so that adds time to my practice time. But especially with your parents, it is going to be nice that your end time is somewhat consistent. Now, my parents are going to laugh when they watch me say that because I've definitely gotten out late. But I usually tell the parents, like, you show up a little bit later than where I think I'm going to be done, and I'm fine with waiting and you not waiting on me. So I would say that as far as
And
parents
mine's usually
goes.
90 minutes to 120. So
Yep. The goal is always 90, but usually 2 hours I think is reasonable, especially with kids that need a little more time on instruction and basics. I think a clean 2 hours is fine.
And I would say we're probably at 2.5, but that's including the full setup and tear down. Because I mean, we put out 2 mats and have to pick up 2 mats.
And I think that Josh, you have a dedicated wrestling room, correct? Still,
They do, yeah.
Yeah, he's got that.
and that helps out. That helps you and I out because we have that dedicated wrestling room where we can practice. We don't have to break down and set up. We just got to clean up afterwards, for mop up and all that good stuff. Yeah.
Which that is so much. I mean, we waste an hour every day. It's an hour, pretty much, of the setup, because especially like if we get there and they've had a pep rally or something and the upstairs bleachers are out, we've got to get the bleachers put in, then we got to clean the concrete,
Yep.
sweep it up before we roll a mat out, get the mats out, then leaf blow the mats, mop the mats, wait for the mats to be dry, get on the mats. Yeah,
It's a
it's a
pain.
nightmare every day. It's a nightmare every day.
Yep.
But hopefully something changes this year. We may get a little spot at Haney
Ooh,
that
nice.
we may be able to get to use this year, and we may not have to roll mats every day. It'll be amazing.
That'd be nice.
It'll be amazing.
When it comes to communicating with all of them, can I just give out my personal number, or is there an app that I should use for that? I'm just trying to tread carefully on that.
What I would say it's kind of mixed. So, all of my wrestlers do have my personal number, but if they're contacting me for something other than wrestling, there's consequences. I use the band app. That way I'm not texting or getting 55 texts to parents and to kids, but the band app, you set that up, and I can communicate everything through that. I can make groups. So if I just want to talk to the parents, not the kids, I can do that. If I want to talk to the kids and not the parents, like if I'm going to be 15 minutes late to practice due to a mission requirement out at Tyndall, I can just say to the kids, hey, I'm going to be 15 minutes late, be outside, ready to go. When I get there, we'll open up and we'll hit it. The parents don't really need to know that, at that point. So that app, and there's a few more out there like that, but I've found the band app. It's free, easy to sign up, easy to sign your kids up. And there's a lot of different programs throughout all the schools that are using it. So once they have it, you just make your little section of it and go from there.
Yeah, and we currently use an app called Line. Does the same thing. I think we're actually going to switch over to a different one called Group Me that we were using at Fargo for Team Florida, just because I've started having some kids that have gotten new phones and they have a problem getting the Line app re-switched over to their new phones for some reason. But we set up groups just like what Tracy's talking about for the parents, for the kids. My boosters have their own group, and per like the rules that when the boosters have a meeting, head coaches have to be at the meeting for it to be an official meeting. So I'm in the group for that. That way, if they're having meetings or there's something, everything stays official, but it's in the group. So kind of have that understanding of what's going on. Same thing with the kids, to be able to tell them, hey, I'm running late coming from the Navy base, or go ahead and start getting the mats set up. I'll be there 10 minutes late. Or for the parents, hey, remember we had fundraising at the football game tonight. Reminders for them. Now, as far as my phone number, parents, I get my phone number out to it, no problem. My seniors are typically the ones that I give my phone number to. That way, if there is an issue and they have a problem with something, they can get a hold of me directly. The Line app gives any of the kids the ability to call directly through that. So I feel better about a freshman using that to be able to call, because it gives me full tracking to be able to show if there was ever anything that comes up, to be able to be like, here you go, here's the everything.
Yeah, and especially with, Rutherford's school, you'll also have that 6 through 12 capability. An app like Bands is better. It's safer for you, safer for the kids. It's easier, like Jay said, it's easier to pull up records. They can't edit messages as much. They can't, delete things. And so it's just safer overall, and it's way more convenient. I like Band. I've used a few of the others. Band's nice because you can upload photos and videos, and there's a calendar section, and so there's a lot of different things. If you really want to pour into Band, it can be your kind of catch all for things. But yeah, I would avoid it. There's times where I need to like call a kid, whatever. But I make the kids, one of the first practices, I make them all make sure they have everybody's number. Because anytime we're on a tournament, I'm like, hey, where's this kid? Somebody call him. Oh, I only have his Snap or I only have his Instagram. We're doing push-ups. I'm like, you got to have your teammate's number. because it's, again, I don't ever call them. I just look over at, little Johnny that I make responsible for everybody else. And I go, hey, where's this kid? Call him. And so it's as much as you can avoid it, I would personally.
Yeah, I mean, we're so bad about it that we use the
Done.
number we use a numbers app on the iPad to be able to log their weights and everything every night, and we track are they in the app to be able to make sure that we can message them. Do we
Right.
have their phone number in case something else happens? Do we have the parents' phone number? And we put all of this into numbers. It's like an Excel spreadsheet on the iPad to make sure that we track everything, because I don't like not knowing something. That way, if something happens, it's readily accessible, especially if a kid gets hurt at a tournament. I want to be able to call the parents quick. I don't want to have to fumble through trying to remember my login for home campus to find the parents' emergency contact.
Right. Well, and never assume your wrestlers are going to communicate to their parents. that's that's another reason why you might as well just have them all in one place. Because
Yep.
gosh, even when I've had big groups of seniors, and I'm like, you know what, I can tell them like they've wrestled for me for years. Hey, tell your parents this is what we're doing. You're still going to get 3 texts that night from a mom or a dad saying, Johnny doesn't know when we're supposed to be there tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, we tell the parents at that first meeting that, look, our expectation is that the kids are going to tell you everything that's going on. We're putting you in a group because we know they're not going to. We're going to tell you, but the expectation is that we're raising men and women that are going to
Yep.
tell you what's happening. So hopefully they
Hopefully.
do, but when they don't, you'll get the information from us. So please don't freak out if they don't tell you. You will find out.
Yep.
I don't. And this was like it partially answered earlier, but dual tournaments, that's really the best way to get them as many matches as possible, or
Duels or scrambles. I think again, if I didn't have it depends on your numbers. If you have a full lineup, duel it all day because
My
that
wife
also lets
will.
you get your backups in way easier too. So if your kid's a little dinged up, or even just like confidence is a little beaten down, I've done that before where I've had a kid where I'm like, this kid needs a break, and I throw that backup in, or I look at their other wrestler, and if I bump my kid up, they got a kid I think they can get a win against, and maybe your kid really just needs a win right now. Like the duels just give you so much more options with that to cycle kids in, get backups in, and play with their weights. And honestly, through duels is how I figured out that some kids were better up a weight class up, and just the success rate they had with that. So I love duels, but yeah, it's either those or the scrambles, like I said, where it's round robin day 1, bracket day 2.
And it's kind of hard with the duels. I'll say this, that I've got 18, 19 boys that, I'm coming out, coach, I'm coming. So, hey, cool. I might have a full squad. So I'm on here making my schedule, and I'm got duels, and then end up with 5 kids.
Yep.
You show up to those duels tournaments with 5 kids, you're still going to wrestle, and those 5 kids are going to do great or not. But your opposing teams that have 14, 18, 20 kids with them, they look at you and they just shake their head. Like, I can't believe you're in a dual tournament with 5 kids. Well, that's the only downside to it,
Yeah.
is those coaches that do that. And I've had that happen, is why I bring it up.
Yeah.
The opposing team was just totally upset that I was there in this tournament with 4 kids. It's like, hey, it is what it is. Let's wrestle.
Yeah.
It's like I paid the entry fee, so just shut up and wrestle.
Exactly.
Look.
I paid the same price you paid, so let's go. But
Fortunately, kids getting a W, so just deal with it, and
Yeah, it's like it's not gonna
that's
last
what
long.
it's going to be.
Like,
it's not going to last long. You're going to get the win.
Yeah.
What else do you want? I'm padding your win column. So hush. But that's one of the reasons why the Gator Brawl is why it is how it is. Is because of the teams that it's going to be hard. It has been hard for almost all of the Panhandle to fill to field a full squad, all 14 weight classes. So with that, on the Gator Brawl, with the round robin format, it's where they go out and wrestle. Some weight classes are full up, so it's 10 round robin matches, and others you wrestle Friday to seed for a Saturday bracket that is not an 0-2 bracket. Everybody wrestles to the umpteenth place, in a scramble format. So look at those kind of things. it bothered me then, but now being a little bit more seasoned coach, I'm like, yeah, whatever, let's wrestle. I don't care if I've got one kid and I'm at a duel, that kid's going to get 10 matches or as many matches as I can get that kid.
Yep.
So, that's the only thing to even possibly think about.
And good ways to keep them motivated throughout the season. I know they get wore out, so and some of them just stop caring. That was my problem.
That's a long season.
Yeah,
it is a long season. So, well, what you got to do is after about the first month and a half of a grind, okay, you're going to grind your kids to get them into wrestling shape, to get them to where they can go the whole 6 minutes without needing an oxygen mask. Kind of lighten up a little bit. Not lighten up in your practice, but at the end of practice, play games. Something, make it fun for them.
mm-hmm.
Before practice, make it fun for them. Make them want to be there. And that was one of the hardest things to learn as a coach, was to be able to do that.
For me, it's always been really front loading, and this only goes so far. It depends on the kid, but I think sometimes you just got to tell kids, especially new wrestlers, like the average path of what a wrestler goes through, like what I believe a wrestler goes through. And that's most of the kids are going to hammer you unless you're an athletic, like you have a strong athletic base coming out. Most kids are going to hammer you. And the goal is to go from I'm getting pinned every match to like I made it through the first period, and then I made it through the second period, and then I made it the full 6 minutes. And it sounds corny, but it's really celebrating that. And they'll watch it if they really start paying attention, especially if they do. If you wrestle a lot of local, you'll see a lot of the same kids. So I'll look at like a Jake Parker, and Jake Parker pinned me in 10 seconds. Well, next time I wrestle Jake Parker, he pinned me in 45. And maybe Jake was playing with his food that time, but it doesn't matter to my kid and my conversation with them.
Exactly.
And, that next time, and then by the end of the season, if your kid got teched by Jake at 5 minutes and 45 seconds, that's an awesome year of growth, man. I mean, and it's really just, it's understanding that it's, again, one of the hardest sports, I think, to just jump into. Because if Jordan and I have started as 6-year-olds and you started as a high school sophomore, the gap is just huge. I mean, I've seen kids overcome it through insane work and athleticism and just some things like that. But just telling them, like, it's really, it's that balance. Because as a coach, like, you never want to tell your kid you're going to go out there and lose, right? But we all have our code words, right? Like sometimes it's the, hey, go have fun with this one. Like, hey, whatever the code word for that is. I'm very honest with my kids. I'm very honest with them. I've had kids going into the state finals where like, yeah, we made every game plan we could to win, but this kid's number 3 pound for pound in the country, recruit, whatever. And like Drew St. Amant wrestling Anthony Artelone in the finals. Drew St. Amant was a phenomenal wrestler. Drew St. Amant had beaten the 2A first and second, 3A first and second that he was watching on the other finals matches. He wasn't touching Anthony Artelone. We wrestled him earlier in the year. If I had 50 more years in the time machine with Drew to train, I don't know that we would have beat him. And so, and I think sometimes being real in wrestling with kids, because it is one-on-one, it's not football where I can go, oh, I got 10 tackles and we lost by 40. It's not my fault. I think it is kind of, managing egos a lot. I think if any sport needs a team psychologist, it's wrestling sometimes. But just tell them, like, we're looking for a goal. And I'll pass it because I know I'm talking too much, but like my own wrestling room when I got to Arnold was Nick Moore, who was a 3-time state placer and 2 state qualifiers. And I was an undersized freshman who didn't break 100 pounds till like halfway through freshman year. And so I was getting whooped in a group of 4 every single day. But I'll tell you what, the first time I got to a leg, and this was thanks to my dad and thanks to my coaches for like keep it, because I was done. I was done at one point. I was like, I'm horrible. I'm no good on whatever. And I'd been doing it for a long time. But the first time I got my arms wrapped in on a leg on a single, like, dude, I went home buzzing. And I remember Nick Moore was mad about it that I got him on the leg. And I think it took another year for me to get a takedown on him. But it's just finding those victories, man. And it's keeping it light, like they said, it's keeping it fun for them. And just learning your kids. I mean, I have kids that, they need that rah-rah before a match in their face. And I have kids that need me to be their buddy. And I have kids that technically just want to hear what was wrong. I would say most wrestlers are not that kind of football vibe of like, oh, you gotta be better, whatever. They kind of want you to build them up a little bit and just explain, what they could do to be better.
Yeah, you got to crawl before you can walk, and you got to walk before you can run.
Yeah.
I think with coaching the girls first as a head coach and then going to the boys, I honestly
It's a
think that
different
was
approach.
for me.
Yeah.
because like the girls, it's really celebrating the small wins.
Yep.
Everything for the girls is celebrating the small wins. Like it started out with we're crying before we even went into the match. We're crying during the match. We're crying after the match. It's like, why are we crying? Like we didn't even start yet. Now you're
Yep.
crying while you're in the match. You won the match and you're crying. I'm like, I don't understand. But learning how to deal with that and the small victories and how to help coach that, it really helps soften my approach for the way that I deal with the boys.
Yeah.
And it's made it to where I'm so much more understanding with my freshmen that have never wrestled before, of being able to help them understand the true that Rome wasn't built in a day, that it takes time. And that 20 seconds that becomes 40 seconds, that becomes the second period, truly is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And that if this was an easy sport, everyone would do it. And obviously, not everyone does it. And it's some of the greatest stuff when you see that light bulb click and they get it.
Yeah.
Then we have some fun. Like they're talking about with games. Now we play some games and then we play some games that are probably, they're harsh enough. I'm not even going to talk about some of them that we play. And but we empower the kids to be able to try to help take the team. We want it to be theirs.
Yeah.
Like I think that's been some of the biggest stuff that we've done in the last couple of years is empowering them to make it their team.
Yeah.
That they have ownership of the outcome. I mean, I know what I want for them, but I'm never going to be the one to step on that mat and go out there for it. So we really want them to be able to try to do it.
Yeah.
All right. So then the importance of Greco and freestyle for overall wrestler development.
I don't know enough about Greco to speak to it. The freestyle portion, though, I was fortunate enough to be selected for Team Florida's girls team this year to go out to Fargo and be one of the coaches. One of my girls was also on the team. Tarina Rushing took sixth with an injury. Amazing girl. Watching the rest of the Florida girls that were out there in freestyle and just being with Team Florida and Coach Des Moore and David Mason and so many others, freestyle wrestling, I think, is crucial. I think the focus of it, I think Greco is probably huge and crucial as well for the boys for what it does up top of just being able to work. So I'm a big advocate of both. I definitely think the boys should be doing both. And the girls definitely on the freestyle portion of it, 100%.
Yeah, and I think they're different seasons is the way I treat it, and I almost treat them like different sports. I mean, we really haven't bought into it until this last year or so, just kind of with some of the supports and Coach Estrada and the things that guys more comfortable to it, because it's growing in the Panhandle. But Jordan knows when we were coming up to find a freestyle tournament would have been, I mean, within the Panhandle
Jacksonville.
almost. Yeah, I mean, maybe you go to Coach G in Niceville if you wanted to get one-on-one training for it, but outside of that, like there just wasn't competition for it. So I don't I'm not super knowledgeable in it, but what I will tell you is basically I would say after you finish state, you pretty much go straight into it if you're going to do it. But I would segment it off. Like I wouldn't be in November teaching freestyle Greco concepts right now. That's your folk style season. But what I will say to Greco, because I know Coach spoke on the freestyle, Darren Dunwald and Justin Dunwald at South Walton. They were two kids that I had to wrestle because of that Greco element. I had to tie kids up. I didn't have the reaction speed. I didn't have the things to deal with kids that were super fast, twitchy, sweep single, low single, whatever. I had to slow them down, but they had such a presence. And even Koa Deloach is a great example of he came in with such a unknown to some kids and they were afraid of his upper body Greco, but he's got a beautiful low shot too. So now you're almost stuck where, I don't want to tie with this guy because they have that Greco experience. But if they also have that sort of shooting attack, you're leaving kids in kind of lose-lose positions. So I wouldn't even say Greco is tremendously different than folk style. I think it's just when you make yourself play it a certain way, you have to get better at it, if that makes sense. Like yeah, there's upper body and folk style, but we always look at it as like low percentage, right? But if I make you, that's your only way of scoring, it just develops so much quicker and you become a more full wrestler instead of just a lower body attack system.
All right. Um, now, what is the role of the community in building a successful wrestling program?
You have to get community buy-in. That's been my major struggle out here in Gulf County, is getting community buy-in. We've had a program now for, I think this is the 19th year, and this is my 17th year or 16th of being a part of it. And there's just still not a buy-in from the community out here. They don't know wrestling. They don't understand it. So I send a lot of my kids over to Panama City to do stuff so that we can get that. And that's where I get my community from, is over there. But your community is huge. Now, my parents of my teams, they're great. But a community as whole, I've still got to figure out a way to get Gulf County, and particularly Weehawken, involved in it.
Right. Well, and what I would say is just financially, it's massive because it's just we don't afford our season without the donations and the sponsors and the different things like that. And so building those for a long time when I had smaller teams, a few years of doing that and then really following up with the businesses and making the personal connection. I probably raise about 5,000 a year just from people that I've built a connection with, and just me through them before the kids do anything. We start with that amount because they've we sent them that photo or that plaque or updates throughout the season, or just those kind of different things. I think financially it's huge. As far as like community, like getting them out to duels, that's still a struggle. Like Tracy was saying, I think getting especially in Bay County, I think we have so many high schools for the area that we have, that it's hard sometimes to get them to buy in. But not to get on that rant, I do think the financial piece is huge. And even when I think community, I just think your parents, like Tracy's saying, and the Weewaw parents are amazing. That's how they've been able to build up that tournament like it is, and their sponsorship with the hospitality room. So I think your community, as far as your focus should be, is your parents, uh, and also the football program. If you, I think one of the best helps to a school is if you can get a football program with coaches that, and not just football, but weightlifting and all those other things, get a community of your other coaches and where you can share athletes. I've gotten great wrestlers that they just couldn't make the soccer team or whatever, or they couldn't make the basketball team, and the coach pushed them my way even though they had no interest in it.
Both of my last two state placers for the boys' side have been football players. I try
Shout
to
out
keep
Logan.
I try to keep a very good relationship with the football team and the head coach because I want football players. I want them from every weight class that I can possibly get them, because I know it's helpful. The community part, my new girl's head coach, this will be his third year of being with the program, graduated from Mosley, went into the Army for 24, 25 years, is back in the community teaching at Haney. And I am trying to have him pull every feather and thread and string to pull everybody that he knows that graduated from Mosley, his old coach, to try to bring things back from who was there. Because I think the people that were at Mosley before have been lost and forgotten.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the community that needs to be brought back, because I think that's going to be what helps bring things back into the school, is just the ideal of not losing what was there. Like when you look in our gymnasium, I don't have anything in my gymnasium that screams Mosley wrestling. If you look at my high school gymnasium, there's state banners, there's all sorts of stuff that screams my high school's wrestling team, going back to before I wrestled there.
Right.
I think that's important for a high school. I think that's important for community. And then that helps. You get the girls volleyball team that's won state a couple times out of Mosley. Basketball teams. When all these other people come in to watch these games that are full, where we can't hardly fill 3 rows of bleachers for a duel, these other teams come in and all these people see things. I think that helps with the community aspect.
Yeah. I think too, I thought about this while he was talking. I'm sorry, but it might not even be part of what you're really asking. I think the wrestling community in North Florida is really important to really ingratiate yourself with. Would y'all say that's right? Because it just
Oh, absolutely.
we, for the most part, have had a really consistent group of coaches. I mean, since I wrestled in high school and even before that a bit, I've seen mostly the same guys at mostly the same schools. And there's just so much relationship building that I've had to fix. I've had to redo. I've had to. I mean, I'm being
I don't know
honest. I
nothing
mean,
about that.
there's times where I couldn't get into certain tournaments because either a coach before me that I was associated with, or even my school. There was times when I first got at North Bay Haven where we weren't allowed into things because there was a bill not paid from 2 coaches ago. uh or there was just a certain, oh, last time North Bay was here they canceled on me, or whatever your program is. There wasn't that much, I'm not being ugly, but there's just a lot, and the refs are the same refs since I was a 10-year-old wrestling through AAU here, and they remember everything, for better or worse. And again, that's another thing where I've really, really tried to work on what 19 and 21-year-old Zane was saying to refs is still biting 32-year-old Zane 11 years down the line. And so, but I've really worked on that, and that's just something. And I'm not saying you kiss butt, but I just think at a tournament, go up and say hi. I've not met a coach that isn't willing to talk. One year I was just really frustrated with how we were performing at state. And I went up to one of the South Dade coaches and I said, "What do you guys do?" I was like, "I practice. Like, what's your typical practice structure like?" He sat there and talked to me for almost 2 hours and gave me his number and all this. I've yet to meet a wrestling coach that shot me down on questions like that. I've yet to meet a wrestling coach that's like, that's our secret formula, whatever. And on anything, just I've had a lot of wrestling coaches talk to me about life and being a dad while being a coach, and so just really embrace that side of it. It's a beautiful community, unlike some other sports of like where I'm on this side of the field and you're on this side of the field and we'll shake hands and that's it. We're in a
And then
gym with each other for 12 hours, and then I'll see you the next morning and see you for another 10 hours. And to not use that time in the gym to network, socialize, and whatever is just going to hurt you and your wrestlers and your program. So
Yeah, definitely on the wrestling community, the coaches, officials as well, but on the coaches, we got each other's backs in our little area here. And if we're at a tournament and I'm by myself, my assistant's out, and I've got 3 kids wrestling. Well, I can only be at 2 of them because you can kind of split mats. But someone else will go sit down in a chair and they'll coach little Johnny for me, and so we're taking care of each other in that way as well. So that's something to don't think that if we're in the corner for one of your kids at a big tournament or at a tournament and you come running in, you're like, "Tracy, what the heck?" Here you go, Josh, it's yours. It's what I told him to do, yada, yada. So just build that relationship with the other coaches. And some of them you're going to know what you see at the district meeting whenever we decide to have it. You're going to be like, yeah, I remember him. So you'll see a lot of that.
Yeah, and I'm about to say, hell, I think there's still about every year I still call and ask a question, Trace.
I make my phone calls too. I always have rule applications is what I do. And so me and Carrie are pinging a few other people as well. And we're asking down south where they've got different interpretations of those rules. So,
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that book seems to change
It
somewhere
does.
around.
When you go past Gainesville, it's a completely different rule book.
Like at the St. John's, it just the pages start changing.
Yeah, it's magic.
Are you talking about their recruiting pages or about their rules?
Oh,
sorry,
recruiting,
private school.
application.
Pardon me, private school. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah,
off topic.
Yeah.
You're fine. Josh, you got any more questions for this esteemed panel?
Yeah, I got one left, and really it's just what are some challenges and some opportunities that are unique to North Florida wrestling?
Distance is a challenge.
Yeah.
Distance is a huge challenge, particularly for you, Jeremiah, because you're 2A.
Yeah. For me, it's definitely a challenge.
Yeah, it's Pensacola and Tallahassee.
Yeah.
So there's no one else here. Well, Arnold is 2A. Are they staying 2A?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, they are right now. It looks like they probably still will be.
Okay.
Yeah. They're one of the only schools not at capacity in the area. So if the kids are getting pushed to them, they won't ever drop back down, I don't think.
Okay.
But even then, though, you're right. Like it's the travel, especially as your kids get better. I mean, it's the year that I was at Arnold and we got third in the state. We didn't have a tournament closer than 6 hours, other than maybe a county and like a gator ball. But I mean, it was 6 hours every weekend to get those kids the kind of look that we felt they needed to get. Obviously, that's there. That's not there and back. It's 12 hours total. But
No, and like
uh,
luckily this year, like on the boys' side, I've got one or two that I need to make sure they see some people.
yeah,
Luckily, Middleburg, Fleming will be at Panhandle this year. We got another Oklahoma and Ohio team coming in,
Yeah.
so we'll have some good competition there. But on the girls' side, I've seriously got to chase competition for Tarina this year. So we're
Yes, you
going
do.
like I'm taking her to Iron Man, the
yeah.
Walsh Iron Man, and we're gonna hit some stuff down south because I've got to chase. We've got Super 32 coming up, so like for her, we've just we've got to chase competition to make sure when it comes state we're ready.
Yeah, and I just to say it because I like to get it out there when we can, but I think facilities, especially for us in Bay
Oh,
County,
geez.
of the areas we go, it's one of the worst in terms of the wrestling room situations. And even the room you have is not a full mat. And it doesn't take a lot of kids to need more than one full mat, to be real with you, especially when you have a 6-12 program and you have the girls in the same room at the same time. You fill that space quickly, but also I've been in that room and the lack of padded walls is a thing that concerns me for the safety of the athletes. And even for like Jay and I, if they have a pep rally or after school stuff, sometimes they're practicing in the grass or they're moving over here or they're moving over there. So that's something that I know is dealt with across the state and across the southeast. I do think it's uniquely a little bit worse in this part of Florida, especially ours. But that's a struggle. Opportunity though to not be all negative. I do think, especially as your program grows, the proximity to Alabama and Georgia is way easier for us than anybody else.
Way.
It's almost shorter, especially if I get to stay Central Time. Sometimes that makes a big difference because we'll have these teams to the east of us. God bless them, I love them, but they'll put weigh-ins at 8 their time. I'm like, well, that's 7 my time, which means I need to be there by 6 my time, which means you know.
Yeah,
And
4
so
a.m.
and
Yeah.
that 1 hour can make a difference on whether or not I can go. To be honest, I mean, it can be the difference on if I think it's feasible. And so, yeah, I think that's a pro we have. I also think the pro, like they mentioned, for anyone who hasn't been in the area and paid attention to wrestling, the growth has been tremendous here in Bay County and Gulf County and the Panhandle as a whole. I do feel way better about these off season events we have. There's so many more opportunities to get mat time. The overall level is still really high up there. It's gotten better and better, and so and the girls are exploding. I think Region One's one of the better regions for girls. Um, I think it's super competitive. I think when you look at the mix of 1A, 2A, and 3A teams, because there's no classification, I think it's still one of the best regions. So, yeah,
I put in for it.
I did too.
Well, unfortunately,
Always.
this is the first time in a long time I have not.
Well, yeah, Josh, that's my other tip. Always put in for regionals. Everybody around you will be happy if you get it, and we'll help you get mats and what. Because we're more than thankful if we don't have to go all the way
Yeah, we
to
know a couple
Pedro
of people that
Menendez
know
or
how to run it, so
Yeah, just a
yeah.
few.
just a few.
So
Even with the girls though, I mean, you could end up having to go down to like, what's the lowest?
Well, we've been down to
the
Kansas like
the
3 years.
furthest, yeah. I mean, North Havens hands down ran the best girls regionals. Just saying, but
I'm not
yeah,
knocking. Definitely not disagreeing. That was a good one.
Yeah.
yeah, the very first one we got to run was really special. I was glad to help with that, and like I said, we're just thankful we don't have to travel. There's no good answer. I do think eventually they'll have classifications, and that'll fix that a lot because it's. I mean, there was one year I think we
Another
were
year or two, I think.
Well,
yeah
you guys will get to see a preview of that at Queens of Florida this year down south, ran either at SU or Kaiser University,
yes
put on
sir.
by myself and Alex Wisdom. So we'll get a chance to see that. I want to put that little plug in
Yeah.
Heck
for
yeah.
my tournament.
Yeah, no, that's
But
going to be a good one.
I'm excited for it. We still got a couple things that we got to put together and figure out. We might end up doing it at Kaiser, not sure yet. But there's actually another thing that we'll probably have to talk on another show about like a Florida, Georgia, Alabama all-star duel that we're trying to get together. But Josh, do you have any more questions for this team colleague? I know we've taken up a lot of their time.
No,
I know they
sir.
don't have anything else better to do on a Sunday other than talk wrestling and watch football, so it's not a big thing for them.
Hey, I it all
Yeah.
your time, man. I've had a lot of questions, and I've only have a few around that can really answer them for me. So
I
really,
mean, well, just like Zane was saying, though, don't be afraid to ask people questions. Don't be afraid of like, hey, can I get your number? Can I like, can you help me out? And the other thing I would say too is like, don't just like you would tell your athletes, like, hey, get better day by day by day. Like that's the same thing for you as a coach. Like I've known some coaches who they adamantly say like I wasn't the best wrestler, but they end up coaching state champions like every single year. So there's no real limit to how good you can get yourself as a coach. And I think by asking all these questions, you're on the right track. And I think we lost them. But we're gonna go ahead and send it on the way. Thank you guys for joining us and helping educate this young coach. I'm sure you'll help him out at all the tournaments as well. I'll have y'all back individually to talk more about North Florida Wrestling Show. I love y'all.
Sounds good. Thanks, buddy.
Love you too, John.
All right. Hey, stay on real quick so I can get all y'all's recordings. And then